I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, you're with GB News. The top story tonight, the expedition company of the Titan Submersible say they believe the pilot and 4 passengers on board are dead. OceanGate pilot and CEO Stockton Rush, UK citizens Hamish Harding, Shahzada Dawood and his son Suleiman, and French national Paul-Henri Nargeolet lost contact with their support ship on Sunday on their descent to the wreckage of the Titanic. The US Coast Guard saying their bodies may never be recovered. Remotely operated vehicles will remain on scene to help develop a timeline of what may have happened to the sub. Rear Admiral John Morger says the 5 pieces of debris found in the search for the missing sub earlier today were consistent with a catastrophic loss of pressure.
An ROV, or remote-operated vehicle, from the vessel Horizon Arctic discovered the tail cone of the Titan submersible approximately 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic on the seafloor. The ROV subsequently found additional debris. In consultation with experts from within the Unified Command, the debris is consistent with the catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber.
Well, here the Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, paid tribute, tweeting, "Tragic news that those on the Titan submersible, including 3 British citizens, have been lost following an international search operation. The UK government is closely supporting the families affected and express our deepest condolences." Meanwhile, Hamish Harding's family have described him as one of a kind. In their statement, they said he was a guide, an inspiration, a support and a living legend. The family said he will leave a gap in their lives that can never be filled. Well, former CEO and co-founder of OceanGate, Guillermo Sondlein, has paid tribute to his former colleague and friend, Stockton Rush, tonight.
One of the most intelligent people I've ever met. Talented aerospace engineer, a passionate explorer. He was very committed to pushing the bounds of humanity's knowledge of the world's oceans, in large part so that we could preserve the ocean.
Well, today's other top story, the Bank of England increased the interest rate by 0.5 percentage point to 5%. That's the highest rate in 15 years as it tries to tackle ongoing inflation. The bank's governor, Andrew Bailey, says inflation is still too high and has to be dealt with. But he added, if we don't raise rates now, it could be worse later. It's the 13th time in a row the bank has increased the interest rate. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, said it's 13 years of government failure. The Prime Minister, though, said there was no easy fix and halving inflation was his top priority still. At Royal Ascot, one particular horse today caused a bit of an upset, winning the Norfolk Stakes at an odds of 150 to 1. Valiant Force, ridden by a jockey called Ross Ryan, becomes the longest-priced winner at Ascot in racing history. Meanwhile, one of the King and Queen's horses, too, Desert Hero, won the King George V Stakes in what's described as a photo finish. Charles and Camilla looking ecstatic as they watch their 18 to 1 thoroughbred claim victory. Congratulations to them. On TV, online, DAB+ radio and the TuneIn app. This is GB News.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon and I'm joined by the thinking man's gammon, Paul Cox. Let's see if we can see him in a minute. No, we got a wide shot though. And scourge of Ofcom and centrist dads on Twitter, a renowned epidemiologist whose views should always be taken absolutely seriously. It's Dr. Lewis Schaefer.
Thank you very much. I am a doctor. I'm also a neurosurgeon and an airline pilot. I'm all those things.
Yeah, and in case anyone doesn't know what I'm referring to, Lewis had a few complaints from you at home, not really you, our beloved viewers, but the GB haters who felt that some of the comments you said were a bit outrageous. But they don't understand that Lewis is a comedian doing a sort of multi-decade living comedic performance that's ongoing. And I'm amazed they take you seriously, Lewis. I mean, this is a person who thinks that blood pressure isn't real, water dehydrates you, and then they're listening to your views seriously. Isn't that amazing?
You know what? I'm right about all those things. And when I'm discovered, they'll say, this guy wasn't even a comedian. He was a genius.
Paul, anything to add? Sorry to leave you out there.
How can you add to that?
Yeah, I know. It's annoying to have to play the straight man, isn't it, to Lewis? But
crazy.
He needs about at least 2 straight men.
But nobody complained. Nobody complained who were watching the show. They complained afterwards. When
True, absolutely. All right, thanks, Lewis. Let's do the front pages then. So, the Daily Mail has, of course, the big story. The Titanic claims 5 more lives. The Telegraph, US accused of turning against UK over NATO. The Guardian, recession fears as inflation forces bank to raise rates to 15-year high. The Financial Times, Bank of England takes interest rates to 5% in effort to put lid on inflation. The Sun, as Titan debris found, they had no chance. Of course, the submarine story again. The Daily Star, you big drip, some irrelevant nonsense. And those were your front pages. So let's start with that big story on the Daily Mail, Paul.
Yeah, it's tragic. Tragic, yet unfortunately inevitable news that they've found debris now that would suggest that the Titan is very likely to have imploded at depth. We don't know when or how. I mean, I only hope that it was relatively early on in the process, so they weren't sat in there for days and days contemplating the end. I mean, I'd like to say at this point, I don't think it was all in vain. There's been a lot of quite offensive fun poking this week, particularly due to the wealth of the chaps involved, which is entirely unnecessary for my money.
You mean things like Ash Sarkar, who said if the super rich can spend £250,000 on vanity jaunts 2.4 miles beneath the ocean, then they're not being taxed enough. Things like that.
The caring left, Nick, the caring left.
Shocking.
I would say, however, I'd like to say at this point, I don't think they've died in vain now. I mean, we need explorers like this. Now, they're all men, but it doesn't matter what gender they are. We need explorers like this. We need people who are going to take risks. This was a huge risk, you know, in hindsight, and not in hindsight, really, in reality. However, without this type of exploration, where do we get ourselves to, Nick?
Yeah, and that's the argument. Is it... Some people say, why, it's reckless, why did you do this? But other people say, no, it's the pioneering spirit that has got us this far. What do you think, Lewis?
I think, obviously, it's a tragedy. People have died, but there's lessons to be learned from this. First of all, like you said, they died within 2 hours of going down on the thing. Yeah, I think that's what they said. It was within 2 hours. So it wasn't... But... Here's the point. The point is, this guy Stockton Rush, who died aboard, he was the leader of the entire thing. So at least he went down with his ship, right? He said he didn't hire, a few years ago, he said he didn't hire 50-year-old white men with military experience because they weren't, quote unquote, inspirational. And he said that anybody can drive this sub, and he was actually being driven with a video game controller. Did you hear this?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, his wokeism killed him.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not sure I put it that bluntly, but I had heard that about the over 50-year-old white men, and that is unfortunate when people, you know, give preferential treatment to other people rather than it being based on experience. And obviously, in these kind of situations, experience is everything, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, I mean, this is the whole argument of meritocracy over diversity, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you can have, you should always have meritocracy no matter what.
And there was a man who lost his job. This is what I don't have it in front of me, but a man who lost his job, who made a complaint about the safety issues. and he was replaced by somebody much younger than him.
There was also a guy who was going to go on it, someone else who had money and was interested in going and signed up for it, but then said it's just too risky and pulled out. So imagine being that guy now. That must be a strange feeling to know that because he just said it's just too risky, and obviously he was proved right.
Like Seth MacFarlane on 9/11.
Yeah, but it has been discussing some of the response. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but the New Republic published this tweet. They said OceanGate CEO missing in Titanic sub had history of donating to GOP candidates. And this is where it gets really sick, the culture war.
It's irrelevant.
Snopes tried to blame it on Elon Musk. They said, it's something to do with Starlink, and then they fact-checked it and they said it was true, and it was completely absurd. What does Starlink have to do with this? You can't get Starlink under the water. So the politicisation of it has been very disturbing. I've even seen some lefties on this channel there's a real problem when people are successful and they do things that seem a bit eccentric. There's a real weird hatred, isn't there?
Well, absolutely, and I just don't think we should be glorifying the death of 5 humans, That's the point, yeah.
I think that will stop now that's happened, but in the build-up to it, it was very disturbing to see.
I hope so.
All right, very, very sad story. Shall we move on and do The Guardian, Lewis?
Yeah, well, this is every week or two or a couple of months that they raise the rates. And it says recession fears as inflation forces bank to raise rates to 15-year high. And they've gone up to 5%, which means Lewis Schaefer has to, believe it or not, I have a mortgage. I'm not going to tell you how I got it, but I have a mortgage.
That is shocking, actually. That's the most shocking thing you've ever said on this show. And you've said COVID doesn't exist, but the fact that Lewis Schaefer has a mortgage. Who looked at Lewis Schaefer, especially your shoes, and your diet, and said, I trust this guy over 5 years.
But you want to know something that I find very interesting, and the people who died in that ship, those ships, right? I'm equating it to the people. Interest rates have been raising. But for 10 years or more, longer than 10 years, they stayed flat at like basically nothing. Basically the government was giving money.
Money was free.
Money was free. And now it's gone up, and I think it was an inevitability. Inflation was caused because the government printed too much money. That's entirely where inflation comes from, basically.
Yeah, I mean, and there's all kinds of exacerbating factors. Many people say Brexit.
Yeah.
Others will say the war, the supply side issues, Bank of England quantitative easing, which you're sort of hinting at. And Sunak here is saying, Sunak sought to reassure workers by arguing he was totally 100% on it in his central mission to ease the pressure on living costs. I mean, lol, come on, Paul.
Well, first of all, we were artificially low for 13 years. We were very cavalier about keeping it low. And it's a shame we haven't been so cavalier in our interest rate rises. Now, that sounds harsh because, obviously, the more you rise interest rates, the more it impacts people. However, the orthodoxy of increasing interest rates is to slow the market down.
Yeah.
Therefore, you are trying to turn off the purchasers' spending will to bring down inflation. That hasn't worked because we're stuck at 8.7%.
Yeah.
However, the reason it hasn't worked is because we crept up in these small increments. Had they gone, and I know this could be disastrous, but we're there anyway. Had they gone from 1.5% to 5% in one hit or two hits, I think we would be down at 4% inflation.
But surely that would spook the markets. I mean, Liz Truss tried to do a tiny tax reduction.
I think this just tells us more about who's controlling the markets.
Right.
It's not us, and it's not. I mean, I think the Bank of England look foolish. Continually look foolish at the moment. They've got no control over this. There was another rise to 5%. They've no idea when this is going to stop now, and at some point we're going to start seeing recessions.
OK. Lots of people are blaming Andrew Bailey. From my experience with people at the Bank of England, they'll probably continue to blame Brexit forever. But let's move on and do the Financial Times poll, and they've got a story about the Church of England. Yes.
So, Anglican Church announces its endowment and pension funds plan to sell out of 11 big companies, including Shell, BP, Exxon and Total. Now, after concluding, none were aligned with efforts to halt global warming. So this is an attempt to green capitalism. It would feel some sort of ethical capitalism. At the end of the day, the church is very good at investing. The church, these endowments, I mean, it's the endowments themselves are billions. I think it's 3.2 billion in the pension scheme and somewhere in the order of 20 billion in the other endowment. They're not stupid. Yeah. But this feels stupid to me. Do you know what was surprising about this to me, Paul, is at first that the church was investing in all these oil companies and now that they're stopping, both were surprised. I just don't see the church as doing that. But, of course, Welby was in the oil industry for 11 years. But what's really... you don't sort of imagine the Church of England, in my naive, quaint way, I don't imagine them being like investors in oil. But then also the move against it, because it goes against the Paris
climate agreement, and it goes against their faith, which really means their faith in climate change, which seems to be the Church of England's real faith these days. What do you think, Lewis?
What I think is, you know, if the Church of England really believed in this stuff, maybe they should stop heating the churches. Maybe they should stop heating the churches.
They're always pretty cold when I go in.
Yeah, well, you know what? Maybe they should, you know, I've been into the in Southwark Cathedral and in the Southwark Diocese of Southwark, and the building is heated and cooled in the wintertime, and maybe they should make a commitment. Maybe Marcus, whatever the guy's, Justin Welby, not Marcus Welby, maybe he should stop having his house heated and let him, you know what I mean?
Good point. Walk the walk, Welby. What? You know, don't just be all mouth and no trousers.
Just say, you know what, we don't need oil. We don't need whatever it's called. And, I mean, because they call it fossil fuels. Well, because, you know...
This is the guy they're complaining about to Ofcom. He doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I'm actually a petro engineer, I'm not trained.
Fully unemployed.
I'm an unemployed petrochemical engineer. If you listen to me, no, I think I made a very good point for comedic effect. I wasn't being mean, but I do believe it.
You smashed it, Lewis. Now let's have a quick look at the Daily Star, if I may, Lewis.
Yeah, well, this is one of those stories. It's I mean, the Daily Star actually is, believe it or not, is a very good newspaper. It just has a horrible front page.
Right, but when you get inside, it's all deep think pieces.
It's a lot of news.
Have you ever seen beyond the front page, Lewis?
I'm looking at
There's
these
a lot
words.
of things going on.
I'm looking at the words here. Anyway.
What's the story about, Lewis? Just for a laugh, let's just read out what it's about. Should we try that?
It says that £1.6 million a year Thames, not Thames, water board.
Thank you.
It just shows I'm British, just like you. I pronounce it Thames.
Yeah,
Thames,
the absolute
water
basic.
boss blames her leaking pipes on a hot summer and a wet winter. She's made excuses why we might need to go into whatchamacallit, where they control the water. But the fact is that Thames Water and the water system they hold the record for the best and longest excuses for why they provide shoddy service. They always blame it on the Victorian pipes.
Yeah.
Like they haven't had over 100 and something years to fix those pipes. And if the roads break down, they don't say, we're sorry, it's the Roman roads that have...
Do you know what else they've known for 100 years?
Yeah.
What the British weather's going to do in summer, autumn and winter.
Incredible.
This is mental.
I know, she blamed hot summer, wet autumn and cold winter. There was a funny line here when she admitted that this is Chief Executive Sarah Bentley, and she admitted that it would meet this year's targets. Now I realise that was a typo immediately. Imagine a British company so good, like, we're only going to meet the targets this year, guys. We haven't exceeded them. But of course it's that they would not meet them, and that then normality was resumed.
Can I add?
Very quickly, yes.
Very quickly. It rains half as much in this country as in this city, in London, as it does in New York.
Yeah.
Half as much.
And less than Paris. It's paradise, London. All right, that's it for part one. But coming up, Windrush, woke capitalism, and why immigration is too low. Lol. See you in a minute.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The people's channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, still here with two dangerous purveyors of misinformation. It's Paul Cox, there he is, and of course, Lewis Schaefer, or Dr. Lewis Schaefer, as he's known on Twitter. So, it's 7 years since Brexit, and I imagine that The Guardian are ready to just let it go now, Paul.
Oh, absolutely not. Only 18% of 2016 Leave voters believe Brexit has been a success, according to polling for the think tank UK in Changing Europe. Straight away, dodgy think tank. But 61% think it will turn out well in the end. Now, I think we need to be objective about this, unlike The Guardian. And if we are objective about Brexit, it's yet to achieve any of its potential. However, there are a couple of things we need to take into account for that. It wasn't going to achieve anything it set out to achieve in this time frame anyway. And it certainly wasn't against a backdrop of a global pandemic and a cost of living crisis. Now, you can't blame Brexit on... You can't blame the pandemic on Brexit. There is an argument that the cost of living crisis is being impacted by Brexit, and that is unfortunate. However, this shows not optimism to me. There are 61% of people who believe that in the end it will work out well. This is a Guardian-related think tank, and still... 2/3 of the people in there think that Brexit will work out well.
Yeah, and interestingly, 72% said they'd still vote the same way, and 72% also said they were sick of the whole topic, which I totally sympathise with, and sorry to the viewer, but we have to talk about it. And it is, of course, the argument here is that one side is saying Brexit has failed, and the other side is saying it was never implemented. So that could go on forever. And actually, obviously, Farage has been talking about coming back, and really, I was thinking about that. I was thinking that is the fault line now in British politics. We never seem to stop talking about Brexit, but isn't that because it's the new fault line? So it's like the Tories versus Labour. So if Farage would come back with the Brexit party, then you could have the non-Brexit party. The name needs a bit of work. And those two could just be the two parties now, because the parties need to be realigned, and this seems to be the real fault line in the country. That's just my little theory. What do you think, Lewis?
Well, I think that isn't the fault line, because there's so much in Labour, so many Labour people, including Jeremy Corbyn, who was against Brexit.
True.
Right? So it isn't particularly a left-right. It seems to be a left-right issue. Like you said, the shocking thing is this was a poll of people who voted for Brexit, right? Was it not? It wasn't a poll of just general people.
You're right. It was a Leave, yeah.
Okay, which shows I've been reading the stories. I know where you think that I don't read these stories. And secondly, people, I think when you get a divorce with somebody who, and this is don't laugh, because you've never been divorced.
How do we get to your divorce?
Because you've never been divorced. This is a divorce. Sometimes you think to yourself, I'm going to be poorer, but I'm not going to have that guy bothering the hell out of me. And that's what Brexit is. That's why 72% of the people who voted for breakfast,
which is raw steak and eggs, apparently.
Said Said they would vote that way again, Paul. Because they were willing to pay the price. There was a price to pay to get rid of those horrible Europeans.
So getting rid of them was like getting rid of Lewis Schaefer. And just saying, I'll be happier without him.
Yeah.
He's a pain.
Yeah,
even though he comes with some benefits.
Yeah, my wife is poor, and my ex-wife, and she had to spend more time with the children, and it wasn't quite as... It was probably better, but she was happier.
She had sovereignty. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Paul?
I feel bad now. I've just trodden over... There was a pretty lucid point you were making. I thought you were going off on some tangent. You did quite well there, Lewis.
Thank you
read
very
the
much,
story.
Paul.
You brought us back with some clarity. You did say breakfast. But my point...
because you were interrupting.
Yeah,
he's so hungry, Paul, on his diet.
But I think... I still think... And I didn't vote Brexit. And by the way, Corbyn, he would have voted Brexit for the first 30 years of his career until it was an actual vote. So let's not pretend Corbyn's not a Brexiteer, because he absolutely is, aren't you, Jeremy?
Absolutely hated Europe.
But one thing I would say is it hasn't been given... It's a bit like a Conservative Party. We haven't had one of those and we haven't had a Brexit.
Yeah. And it's not a perfect fault line, my thing, Lewis, but it is closer than you think, because the two main parties now, Tories and Labour, are very, very close, so that's not working anymore. We need some sort of realignment. Go on.
Yeah, can I tell my joke?
If it's very quick.
Yes. The difference between someone who voted for Brexit and someone who didn't vote for Brexit. The person who voted to remain is someone who wanted their children to one day to be able to work in Europe. And the person who voted Brexit is someone who wanted their children to someday to be able to work in Britain.
When's the joke?
We're trying to prove this comedian thing.
It was a good point. It was more of a point.
No, but it's...
his points are jokes and his jokes are points.
Tweet me.
Don't complain to Ofcom, guys. We've got to be... So, actually, I might complain about that joke to Ofcom. Let's do the Telegraph with some rare news about the prince that isn't the one
was such a good joke.
that everyone hates, Lewis.
Oh, this is me.
Yes.
Windrush.
You're just busy talking over my
this
intro.
is the Prince of Wales, who it's hard to get your head around that the Prince of Wales is not that horrible Charles, but his horrible...
How dare you speak about our monarch that way?
I'm sorry, I'm an American. Don't complain about me. Send me back. Send me back. I think I'm not a royalist. I'm sorry. You want to believe that stuff, that's what you believe. You also believe in beans on toast. You know, you believe...
This would have been treason a few years ago, but go on.
Say that.
We have free speech.
But it says the Windrush generation, quote, according to Prince Charles, made us better, according to the Telegraph. And he said their contributions to Britain cannot be overstated, and they experienced hardship after they arrived, which they did, and the nation's forever grateful for their impact. They've done... You know, the fact is that this country needed a kick up the butt with some hardworking immigrant people of color who added a lot to this country. This country, I can imagine how horrible it was in the 1950s and 60s. If the whole country, I don't want to point my finger at you two guys. Imagine if this was
just a load of pulls and nicks.
It's like, imagine, I think to myself, how bad would this country be if there were no black people? It'd be horrible.
Interesting point. So, well, look, I think everyone does like the Windrush generation. I mean, you know, William says their contributions to Britain cannot be overstated. They probably could, but people are generally well disposed towards them. And now, of course, immigration is so high that it's a different story. But what do you think, Paul?
Well, I agree with him. I mean, I think you can overstate anything, by the way. I think that's a bit of hyperbole.
Lewis always does.
However, yeah, I mean... I've actually taken the time to watch a few documentaries recently on BBC4, which is a weird channel, by the way, don't watch it, that are running a series of Windrush documentaries at the moment, and they were very enlightening. And to be fair, the fact that they've stayed the test of time and they're still here and they've created generations of people is testament to them. Also testament to the good people of Great Britain as well, by the way. We can't be that bad.
Yes, despite what Lewis says.
No,
OK, we've got to move on, Lewis. Okay, I'm so sorry. On that endorsement of a rival channel from Paul, we have to move on. And let's do the Mail now. And we found the one person in the UK who thinks immigration is too low. And, of course, it's a Tory politician, Paul.
Absolutely.
What is going on?
Well, Downing Street today dismissed calls from former Tory Chancellor... I don't know how he was a Tory, to be honest. Former Tory Chancellor Philip Hammond to relax immigration rule so the economy... and reintroduce foreign labour to undercut British wages and get the economy going again. It's like people have amnesia. It's the significant contributor to the situation that we're in now. It's not the only contributor, but one of the significant contributors is that our whole economy, since probably Blair's Labour, has been entirely reliant on cheap labour, whether that be foreign or not. Largely foreign, but cheap labour. And because it's not homegrown, we've just plugged the gap each time, OK? Now we've got an opportunity, and we should take the opportunity to try and be a bit more self-sufficient. That's not nationalistic, that's good economics. That's becoming sustainable in the same way as people want you to become sustainably green. You need to become economically sustainable. And the way you do that is to make sure that the people living within your country, wherever they come from, that are here now, are able to do the jobs that feed the economy.
Yeah.
This is just more of the same.
Yeah, it comes down to a Remainer lamenting Brexit again. He wants us to get free movement back. And as you say, it's a short-termist approach. I mean, it doesn't even work for the birth rates problem long-term, so it doesn't solve anything. And this idea that it's a choice, he's saying you can't have an increasing cost of mortgages because that's politically toxic, but so is high immigration. But that's not really the choice. And you could easily argue that the numbers of people coming in have made house prices even worse, obviously because of supply and demand. So it's a very strange idea that you have to sort of choose one or the other. It's like, no, arguably immigration has contributed to that. So that was the frustrating thing to me. And then lastly, before I come to Lewis, the idea that we bring in just skilled people. He's saying we have this points-based system, we bring in people with specific skills, but is that really working? It seems to me we have all kinds of people coming into the country who don't have any relevant skills. But what do you think, Lewis?
But even if you bring in people with skills, such as Lewis Schaefer, who brought comedy and laughter to this country, where it wasn't 20 years ago when I came here, it was pretty horrible. You might not, the comedians that you're laughing at, maybe not you're laughing at me, but you're laughing at Nick Dixon, I made him funny. Yeah. Paul, I made funny. But
in contrast to you, that's how it works.
But maybe that's what it is. I made you said, well, I could do this. I could be as funny as Lou. The point is, here is the point.
Let's get
the point is that mass immigration might actually help this country. I know you think that it doesn't really help birth rates, but by bringing in young, vital people and their families, they have kids, and that's what we need. We need people who are going to work. China's having the bottom's falling off the Chinese birth replacement.
OK.
Yeah.
We got to go. First, we'll do one more story before the break in The Guardian, again, for some reason. And if you don't like woke capitalism, you're a climate denier, apparently, Paul. Is that right?
Oh, this is me.
No, we're doing Paul's one quickly about the woke capitalism.
Right-wing war on woke capitalism.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the American right wing widening the fight against what it calls a woke capitalism is partly driven by fossil fuel interest of industry allies. Essentially, the idea is that the anti-woke movement, or as the rest of the world call it, normal and common sense, is in some way trying to curb the overzealous policies that are driving some of our green policies across the states in this case, but across the world. Now, I think that's good. I think that's good. It's not because I don't believe in green policies, it's because they are overzealous, and this isn't... They're always trying to skew the argument, you know, the anti-woke, the right wing are this, they're bad, you know, green's good, anti-woke bad. This is a nonsense. This is a non-story, Lewis.
Well, what was interesting about it is that the Guardian are trying to attack the anti-ESG people here, saying they're all tied to climate denialism. But even if it's true, which I don't necessarily believe it is, that's just the same phenomenon as the ESG people. They're both trying to, if it's true, rig it in favour of their beliefs with funding. Go on.
And this story, this non-story, as Paul rightly points out, comes from a new report from a research and advisory from the Pleiades strategy, whose goal is to accelerate climate action to build future...
He'll get there.
Okay.
It's his own right and he's reading it.
I wrote it down. To build a future rooted in equity, justice, and shared prosperity. So this is a totally left think tank, and they're trying to make it seem like it's just, you know.
Of course. Classic Guardian. All right, we've got to go to the break. Lewis is going to eat something and wake up. And coming up in the next section, the chef who's banned vegans from his restaurant and poo transplants. Wonder if those two stories are related. See you in a minute.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get straight into it with the Daily Mail. And the BBC continue to maintain their rigorous impartiality standards. That was the joke there, Lewis.
Yes. This is the BBC broadcaster Clive Myrie, who I don't really know because I don't watch the BBC and I don't even know why I'm... Can I get out of not paying my license fee? Clive Myrie pulled from News at 10 over fears Boris Johnson jibes on Have I Got News for You could, quote, spark impartiality row. Or is it a row? Row.
It is row, yeah.
It is row. And what it says is that the host, Myrie, who was the host of Have I Got News for You, was actually scheduled, it was double dipping. He was doing the news. It's like when we do 2 programs at once. He had to go do the news at 10. But meanwhile, at 9, he's like making jokes about Boris Johnson. So there's a question of impartiality. You know the British people. Because when they had only one channel, they needed it to be totally impartial between the left and the right, between Labour, the Lib Dems, and the Tories. So they had to make it seem like everybody was completely impartial. Now there are 1 million channels, and they don't need to do that anymore. So they told this guy, Clive Myrie, that you can't do the news at 10.
I'd like to see the Impartiality Row, actually, like a Cambridge boat race. Whoever wins it gets to control the agenda of the BBC. But this poll, actually, just to defend the BBC, which I will do from time to time, I'm very fair, this doesn't seem that bad to me. They had concerns that Clive was doing 2 very different types of programme within an hour of each other, which could be a bit odd. You're doing a comedy show, then you're doing the serious news. And the problem with it is, once you're doing a load of jokes about Boris Johnson, you can't then say, and now I'm talking seriously about Boris Johnson in a neutral way. It doesn't. But, of course, the flaw of it is we all know what the BBC really believe, and we've seen people like Emily Maitlis when she leaves, and she tells her real views, and lo and behold, they're exactly the views we thought. Or was it Martine Croxall who got in trouble for laughing at the idea of Boris going? So, and BBC Verify, which is just an absurd propaganda service. So, although this makes some sense, they're not really fooling anyone. Sorry, Paul, bit of a rant.
No, absolutely. And I do agree with you. You know, There's two things going on here. You've got to be able to have satire, OK? And if you're going to... Whoever's presenting the satire show is allowed to be satirical about what's going on. And that's all I saw there. Made some pretty funny stuff. Boris was the butt of the joke. I mean, I'm a comedian, you're a comedian, Lewis is a doctor. We should be able to do that. I don't have any issue with Clive doing that. It's amusing to me because the BBC have made a rod for their own back. The rod is impartiality. It doesn't exist. They are not impartial. They need to stop pretending that they are. Or someone like Clive Myrie cannot go on Have I Got News For You, which would be a shame.
But they haven't made a rod for their own back. They haven't. The fact is that the BBC is in a very bad position because they're the state propaganda network pretending to be all things to all people, when the truth is they represent the deep, deep, deep state. Once upon a time, they represented the kings and the queens of this country. Now they represent the World Economic Forum. You know what it is?
Plenty of fresh meat for Twitter there, Lewis.
Yeah, you know what? The BBC is the worst thing about this country.
OK. Do you know what?
Am I allowed to say that?
You can say that, I suppose. We should address the elephant in the room, which, of course, Lewis, the trouble you got in was because you were saying something and people said, well, that's very serious. But I think that's different because a couple of reasons. One, you're a comedian and that's been your life for many years, probably your whole life. Yeah. And we're all billed as comedians on here. That's what the show is. We've all done years of comedy for our sins. The other thing is that the BBC has the licence fee and has to be impartial, whereas actually GB isn't claiming to be. But if the analogy was fair, it'd be like Lewis does all his stuff he says on this show about meat and blood pressure and water doesn't exist or something, and then he goes on it, and now the serious news with Lewis, and half an hour later, and it would be a bit weird, but we're not doing that.
But why can't I do that? It's like The Guardian. They print a massive amount of misinformation, as all newspapers do. The Telegraph does their own misinformation. But there shouldn't be a government agency telling The Guardian that they have to print, an anti-climate change thing.
I got it. Let's move on and do the Telegraph. And is 13 too young to drop the boring subjects you hate, Paul?
13 is too young for a lot of things, and we need to start learning that a bit quicker. However, in this particular story, 13 is too young to be making life-changing GCSE subject choices, the head of Ofsted said. Amanda Spillman tells the Lords Education Committee that she worries too many children are dropping subjects such as design and technology. A couple of things going on here again. I mean, her point is essentially she wants more people, more children to be doing design and technology. If she wants that, they've got to make it much more interesting in school. I did a HND in electronics and electrical engineering, and it was a much more practical way of learning on the job, in with IT and other engineers. At school, they get you to make an ashtray and a part of a bike or something.
Yeah.
They really don't enthuse the kids. And a complaint here is that there are all these labs around the country that aren't getting used because kids aren't interested.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm the wrong person to ask because I would bring back the 11 plus and grammar schools. But I mean, I don't know. Just briefly, Lewis, what do you think? I mean, is it because it's a bit? Tech's important, but CBT, whatever it's called, CDT
it
is
a bit important. And I don't know too much about this because I didn't have this kind of education in this country, and I was isolated from my children during these times. So I was
insight. Quite sad.
It is really sad. So I mean, it was good because I wasn't involved at all. Thank God. It was a blessing. And now my kids are happy to see. Anyway, it's like this is what I learned from this: that secondary schools are measured on the number of pupils that take GCSEs in EBACC subjects, including maths, English, and literature. So it's the centralization of control that has forced the countries. So that's the worst thing about this country. Is
OK, Lewis Schaefer drinking game. He said centralisation. Loyal fans take a drink. Let's do the Independent now. And a chef has banned vegans from his restaurant. Now I have to remain totally neutral, but who is this absolute legend? Lewis?
Legend. Actually, he's a full-on idiot. This guy, celebrity chef. This is the worst in the entire world. Ready? Is the Independent. Celebrity chef bans vegans from his restaurants for quote mental health reasons. You can't call yourself a chef. A critic complained about it. So a celebrity chef in Perth, who used to be British, the restaurant is called Friars. He said he doesn't want any vegans in his place because they cause a lot of headaches. And this is so stupid of him. It makes a little bit of publicity, but at the end of the day, the money is in the vegan dishes because the crap that... Am I allowed to say that word?
I think it's pretty mild, yeah.
OK, the garbage that vegans eat is the most profitable type of food. Spaghetti with tomato sauce and beans.
OK, but it is declining. And Paul, my dad was a chef. It was so annoying, people's little requests and stuff. I love this guy's taking a stance. We just don't do that. Elite food is not about catering to inclusive taste. It's just about doing what you do. It's an art. Go on.
No, I mean... It's live, by the way, Lewis. Just a
What is
reminder.
live?
The show. It's live. The show's
You can't
live.
edit what you've just said.
Look, I'm with you on this, Nick. The guy's a legend. I mean, he's a little bit pretentious here because he doesn't like being reviewed and doesn't like being complained about, but neither do I. So I'm totally on board with him. And vegans are boring.
Yes, absolutely. And lastly, the Independent did a classic thing. They put a picture of him in a T-shirt that said "psycho" on his Instagram or something. It was just so independent. The way, like, yes, all people who don't like vegans must be psychos. Let's do the eye now. And of course, our friend Leo Kurz went to Turkey for a hair transplant, but soon he'll be able to go for a poo transplant.
This is a brilliant story, Nick. The UK is to launch a national clinical trial of poo transplant that researchers believe could treat adverse liver disease and fight antimicrobial resistance. Now, for those who didn't quite understand everything I said there, I didn't when I first read it, what they are saying is they will take someone else's poo, put it into your bum tube, and the process of doing so and introducing the new poo to your bum tube will help resolve some of these.
And I didn't know you were also a doctor there, Paul, but bum tube is the official.
Do you want to know something? This is the most ridiculous story. I don't even know anything about. I tell you something. If I don't know about this, and none of my people who really believe this stuff,
all four of them,
all four, they don't know about this. But the truth is, I have brought poo in. I went to the loo. I have brought some poo.
You didn't warn us about this.
I didn't warn about it.
Everyone on Twitter writing the complaints as we speak.
If you believe it, I have some.
What are you doing, Lewis?
Genuinely thought you had.
Are you going to transplant that into
a petri dish of excrement?
No, it's chocolate cake.
It's chocolate cake, Lewis. How dare you? But yeah, actually, Lewis, I've heard this ages ago, because if you have like bad flora in your gut, this is a way you can replace people's flora. It could actually work. And so it is a story. I disagree with you.
Can I disagree with you?
Very quickly, in like 10 seconds.
Is that the gut flora goes through it so quickly? All you need to do is change your diet. It's not like it sits there for years.
Always the answer.
Forever.
The raw meat diet from Lewis
Raw
Schaefer.
meat diet.
All right, that's it for part 3. But coming up, Microsoft's new supercomputer, lab-grown chicken, and Elon and Zuckerberg agree to cage fight. See you in 2.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant Reed, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News. Britain's watching.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows,
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get into it with The Telegraph and a cage fight between the world's two biggest nerds, Paul.
Yeah, beta mail me up. Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg agree to a cage fight, guys. A cage fight in Las Vegas. The tech billionaires have traded barbs in recent weeks after plans emerged of launching a Twitter competitor. Now, this is very, very, very 2023. This isn't news. This is mental. This is what happens when you've got so much money. I mean, they haven't got time on their hands, but they've got so much money, and you've got a lot of ego to sort out. On the face of it, Elon smashes him, doesn't he? You know, I don't want to start drawing odds right now, but on the face of it, Elon smashed him. However, Zuckerberg is an alien, so he could have all sorts up his sleeve. I don't know what he's going to do.
And he has won. He's been only doing it for a short time, but he's won a lot of fights. And I know he's a Jew. I myself, I actually,
I'm sorry.
The martial art that I practice is called judo, and I'll show you how it works. Grab me by the wrist. All you do is you go. Stop it.
I was really worried.
So absurd. I was worried that was going to be an anti-climax.
This is a news program. It's a news program.
So, Lewis, we've got Zuckerberg, who looks very fearsome, actually, in his training videos. He actually looks good. And then you've got Musk, who I believe is 51, says 57 in the article. I believe that's wrong. Zuckerberg, 39, a lot younger. So you would give it to Zuckerberg.
I would give it to Zuckerberg.
For the fact that Mr. Andrew Tate is training Elon Musk, and Tate says, Meta banned me everywhere for telling the truth about vaccines, but we can now restore honour with a strike at the enemy clan's leader. I will train you, Elon Musk. You will not lose. So that could make the difference. The top G in his corner. And can I just say, both Tates follow me on Twitter. So once I get Elon Musk, I've completed Twitter, I think. So that's my next goal. But what do you think? With Tate in the corner, could Musk do it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, who knows? I mean, Tate, what corner? Well, they're going to fight it in his prison cell? Well, they're going to do this. I mean, where's he going, Nick?
Huh?
Well, Tate, I mean, it looks...
Yeah, he's on house arrest, so it's a bit tricky. Musk will have to go out to Romania, and then Tate will have to train him. And I think
he can do that, though, can't he?
Okay, I think that's the feeling of us draining enough out of this story. Lewis is looking at me blankly, and that very rarely happens. If Lewis has nothing to say, we've probably done enough on the story. But let's look forward to that cage fight. Let's do the Times now. And Bill Gates is taking a break from releasing deadly viruses to create a quantum supercomputer. And before you all complain to Ofcom, I know Bill Gates doesn't actually create the computers himself. Paul?
Microsoft, a step nearer to creating a quantum supercomputer. The company has in its sights a machine that can solve some of the world's most complex problems. The company has celebrated the breakthrough as the first stage of a 6-part plan to engineer a machine that can solve some of the world's most complex problems. Which has got to be what is Lewis Schaefer thinking? If a quantum... I mean, this is your field, actually. I believe you're an unemployed quantum supercomputer engineer, aren't you, Lewis? Yeah. So this is right up your street. What I would say is that this is happening to us now, isn't it? This is a pattern. AI, quantum supercomputers. There's going to be very little need for us soon. I really don't know where technology's going now. It feels like it's running at an incredible pace. I mean, if you took 1400 and 1500 and travelled between those 100 years, you wouldn't see any technological changes. Perhaps a bit of blacksmithery that I'm unaware of. However, if you look at the technology in the last 100 years, technology in the last 8 years is just exponentially flown. I think I'm scared now, Nick.
Yeah, and it's a bit worrying that it's Microsoft. I mean, if it was Steve Jobs' Apple at their peak, or if it was Musk, I'd have a bit more faith in it. But Microsoft, I mean, Windows 95, what have they done since? Yeah. Right? Except Bill Gates' synthetic meat, which I never want to have in my mouth. Go on, Lewis.
Yeah, I don't. First of all, anything that has to do with Microsoft, you do not trust. It's Bill Gates. Even though he hasn't been there for years, it's kind of like it's been. And the truth is that this quantum thing, it's based on physics, and anything that's based on physics, not only do I not understand, but I think it's all a lie.
That's your default position.
Yeah.
Don't understand it. Probably all a lie. Viruses, water,
a lie.
blood pressure.
Velikovsky
marriage.
might have something to say about it.
All right.
Beans on toast earlier.
Yeah, England. All right, let's have a look at the Times now. And lab-grown chicken has been approved for sale in the US. You will eat as a lab-grown chicken and you'll be happy, Lewis.
Yeah, lab-grown chicken. The United States has approved the sale of man-made chicken created from... It's 2 California companies are vying to be the first one. But the truth is that it's going to be... It's this cultivated meat. It says, oh, it's great. Because maybe it's like for vegans to make them happy. Oh, we're eating... Because they just want to eat meat. You know, that's why...
These are real chickens, aren't they?
Well, they're not real chickens. They come from chicken stuff. And, and the fact is they're cultivated. And according to this, and I believe this to be true, cultivated meat is orders of magnitude higher uses of energy and stuff in order to make them. It's not like you put a chicken out in the field or whatever in a barn. In this, they got to actually grow the grain, cook the grain, boil the grain, mix it in, and do this and do that. And I don't believe it, and it's going to be horrible tasting. And number two, it's not real.
Okay. Anything pressing on that, Paul? Otherwise, I might move on.
I think we'll move on, Nick.
Yeah, enough of weird meat. Let's do the Star. And the ancient Egyptians drank vaginal fluid and blood, or as Lewis calls it, breakfast, Paul.
Delicious.
I rewrote that one. I mean, that was good.
That was good.
Sorry to...
I've just taken up a minute of actually laughing at that. I'm really sorry. Ancient Egyptian cult got high on psychedelics and drank bodily fluid cocktails. Researchers have found 2,500-year-old ancient Egyptian cult used psychedelics, fermented fruit juice and vaginal fluid and blood. I mean, you try building the pyramids without a pint of vaginal fluid a day, Nick.
Yeah.
It's a great point, actually. Yeah, how did they do it? We've always wondered, Lewis. It was your diet, essentially.
Well, according to Velikovsky,
yes,
Velikovsky is that possibly the gravity was way less back in the day because of our position in the solar system.
You're also a gravity truther, Lewis. How did we not know?
Yeah.
This will be another tweet thread from your enemies.
I do believe in gravity. I just believe it's changed over time. And the Earth as the Earth has moved positions in the solar system, and it's not one of the strongest forces.
Not one of the strong... Of all the forces,
electromagnetism is way stronger.
I love the way you dug yourself out of the hole by saying you're not convinced about gravity. All right, the show's pretty much over. It's been a lot of fun, but let's have another quick look at Friday's front pages. So, the Daily Mail has the Titanic claims 5 more lives, with a very sad submarine story there. The Telegraph, US accused of turning against UK over NATO. The Guardian, recession fears as inflation forces bank to raise rates to 15-year high. The Financial Times, Bank of England takes interest rates to 5% in effort to put lid on inflation. The Sun, as Titan debris found, they had no chance. And the Daily Star, you big drip. And those were the front pages. That's it for tonight. Thanks to Paul and Lewis. We're back tomorrow, of course, at 11 p.m. I'll be back if I'm not sacked. And depending on how many complaints we've had. But for now, it's good night, good morning, and God bless.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The people's channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the people's channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Is Barrage at Large. Live from Barnsley. Please welcome your host, Nigel Barrage.
Yes, good evening. We're in Barnsley for Barrage at Large. 7 years since the referendum. I've come to find out what do people think, have the government delivered, and all of this on the day when people's mortgages went up. There's a lot to talk about among the very plain-speaking people of South Yorkshire this evening. But before all of that, let's get the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Nigel, thank you. Good evening to you. Well, the top story this hour from the GB newsroom, the US Coast Guard says they have discovered a debris field near the Titanic in the search for the missing Titan submersible that was on its way to see the wreckage in the North Atlantic. A remotely operated vehicle, we understand, has made the discovery in the last few hours. The information that it has is now being evaluated by experts, and we're expecting a news conference live from the US Coast Guard based in Boston at 8 o'clock UK time. That'll be live here on GB News in just under an hour's time. 5 people missing inside that submersible that lost contact on Sunday. Full details at 8 o'clock. Now, the other main news today is that the Bank of England has increased the interest rate by 0.5 percentage point to 5% today. That's the highest rate in 15 years as the bank tries to tackle ongoing inflation. The bank's governor, Andrew Bailey, saying inflation's still too high and has to be dealt with. And he said if we don't raise rates now, it could be worse later. This is the 13th time in a row the bank has increased rates. Speaking to warehouse workers in Kent earlier on today, Rishi Sunak said halving inflation was still his top priority, but there was no easy fix.
Rooting out inflation is not easy. It requires difficult decisions. It doesn't happen overnight. But if we don't get on top of it, it would just get worse and it would last longer. And that's not going to do anyone any favours. It's not going to be good for you and your families in the long run. And even though it means I have to make some difficult decisions, that's the type of Prime Minister I am, because I want to do the right thing for you and your families in the long term.
But the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, said the government is failing people.
I think it was inevitable that the mortgage rates would go up today, but we have to firstly think about all those families, all those mortgage holders who are going to be really struggling now in the middle of a cost of living crisis. Now their mortgage is going to go up as well, and they're paying the price, they are paying the price for 13 years of economic failure under this government.
20,000 railway workers are due to go on strike for 3 days in the month of July. The RMT union announcing today that industrial action will take place on the 20th, 22nd and 29th of next month. The strikes coinciding with major sporting events, the Open and the Ashes, both set to be affected. And one other sporting occasion that took place today, Royal Ascot. One particular horse did rather well, causing a bit of an upset as well, winning the Norfolk Stakes at an odds of 150 to 1. Valiant Force, ridden by jockey Ross O'Ryan, became the longest priced winner in Ascot racing history. Meanwhile, one of the King and Queen's horses, Desert Hero, won a race today. It was the King George V Stakes. It's a photo finish. And if you're watching on television, you can see Charles and Camilla looking on ecstatic as they watched their 18 to 1 thoroughbred claim victory. You're up to date on TV, online, DAB+ radio and the TuneIn app. You're with GB News, back now.